It can happen so easily. You're out with your friends or coworkers, you're putting back a few drinks, a few becomes a few too many. It's time to go, and for a moment, you think of calling for a ride. Nah, you're a good driver. You live nearby, you can make it home okay. What are the odds you'll get pulled over? And even so, what's the worst that could happen? You lose your license, you lose your job, you total your car, you kill someone. It only takes one mistake to change your life, or someone else's, forever. Play it safe and plan ahead to get a ride. Drive sober or get pulled over.
SportsGrid.com. Betting insights and entertainment at your fingertips 24/7 as our team covers the most important topics in sports wagering. Real-time odds, predictive betting models, expert picks, and more. Want the edge? Then get on the grid. SportsGrid.com.
Welcome back, Fantasy Sports Today on Sports Grid. As we continue on, we got live baseball to get to. We'll give you some score updates, although it's kind of quiet here in the first hour of the show, but we're going to go over everything and tell you who did what for your fantasy team or for your wagering, whatever you decide. Let's get to our headlines here at the top. You heard Chris's, here are ours. 3 game threes tonight in the NBA playoffs. One is the Miami Heat taking on the Milwaukee Bucks, desperate for a win. Phoenix is in LA. Denver is at Portland on FanDuel. Blazers -4. 2 elimination games tonight in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Toronto leads Montreal 3-1. Carolina leads Nashville 3-2. We've got multiple doubleheaders in New York today as the Mets and Yankees are both going to play 2 games. Toronto Blue Jays, Alek Manoah, set for his major league debut. But certainly, Davis, a big weekend, I think, ahead for a lot of us. And with a lot of NBA playoffs going on, a lot of NHL, it kind of sets up for a nice weekend, I think, here for Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, sets up for, we got some good golf. We got NBA playoffs. We got NHL playoffs. We have, some baseballing to look forward to. We got Ohtani pitching tonight. We have Manoah pitching tonight. I'll be excited to see his results. I mean, if you live your life around sports and sports wagering, this is a pretty nice time. You can sit on the couch. You can have, a baseball game up on the iPad. You can have an NBA playoff game up on the TV, and you can be on your phone, drafting best ball teams or wagering on sports or doing whatever you want. It's pretty good time of year.
Do you go outside of, let's say, sports watching? Do you go outside ever of, I'm going to try to get these in order. I'll be wrong probably. NBA, golf, soccer, Major League Baseball. This week, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Do you can do a little NHL, I guess, with Colorado, but is there something I'm missing? Like, what will you do outside of that with sports? I think I pretty much hit on all of it. Like, you don't do NASCAR at all, do you?
No, won't watch the NASCAR. Won't watch any of the. I mean, there is a lot of cool esports stuff going on that I got pretty into during hardcore quarantine lockdown that I am not nearly as interested in anymore. So that's pretty much it. Keep tabs on the baseball, watch basketball. If Colorado's playing, I'll flip on the NHL, and definitely be tracking the Charles Schwab Championship for sure.
And have you scheduled any in-person attendance of any sporting event over the next month or two? Have you scheduled any of that yet? I don't want to be the only one on this show. Well, I guess James is going to games too. He's on the broadcast for the Royals. But have you scheduled anything for yourself?
I will. I mean, I want to go to a Cardinals game. Maybe I'll wait until I need to see if the Dodgers are coming into town. I love to watch Kershaw pitch. I really would like to go. It's just right now I'm moving and dealing with that stuff, and when you're moving, and I'm buying a house, so I got paperwork to do. I'm signing up for utilities. Like by about 7 o'clock every day, Craig, dude, I am just done. Like my brain is so fuzzy. I'm so exhausted, and like the concept of like, okay, my day is finished, and now I'm going to get up, I'm going to get in the car, I'm going to drive 20 minutes, I'm going to go park, I'm going to figure it out and sit at a baseball game for 3 hours. Like, it just feels exhausting.
Yeah, I think, I mean, look, there are a lot of worse things in life, but to me, one of the more intimidating things in life is moving. I've lived in my same house now for about 15 years. The idea of me living and being able to afford another house, Davis, in South Florida is definitely there, and it's definitely enticing. But the idea of actually doing it and moving is the thing that will always prevent me from actually going through it. I know that you're going through it right now, and it's no fun. It's and you mentioned buying a house too. I mean, on top of it, you think like the closing and everyone just shakes the hands and that's done. It's like the beginning of it.
Yeah, no, so that's the thing is like I'm already dealing with, okay, well, the people who lived in the house before, they're taking the washer and dryer, so I got to buy a washer and dryer.
Mm.
We need furniture because we're moving into a bigger house than the house we live into now, so we need another couch, we need to furnish the guest room. We got to make sure that we have stuff in the basement. I got to make sure that the internet is ready to go, because obviously I'm working from home. So my office has got to be set up. It's like you're handling so many different things at once. I'm juggling like 19 different things. It feels insane.
Definitely does. All right. Well, listen. Good luck for sure with that this weekend, no doubt. By the way, really good news I saw on the early line today. It looks like a lot of our hosts, or at least some of our hosts, I won't say a lot yet because I'm not sure, but some of our hosts are back in our Sports Grid studios in New York City. And that is not something that I've said in over a year, but it was really cool popping on my app, my Sports Grid app today, and seeing Kevin in the studio. And I'm guessing a lot of other people are going to be broadcasting in the studios. Now, of course, Davis lives in Missouri and I live in Florida. So maybe this summer I'll pop in and do some shows from there. And I have from the past actually here on Sports Grid. But really cool and great to see a lot of our hosts back and working from our studio. We have a really nice studio at Versa in New York. So hopefully one day we'll all be together. But for now, piece by piece, we're kind of getting back to normal here on Sports Grid. Okay, coming up next, Pat Kerrane is going to be with us, and he's got a look with Davis at some of the wide receivers in fantasy football. I have some interest in some of these too, so I'll be tuned in. And then, of course, we're going to continue our discussion from a fantasy football perspective in May, how the Indianapolis Colts may look on the field in 2021. We also have Fantasy or Reality in the Sports Grid 60, as we're on this Thursday edition of FST. Stay on the grid. We'll be right back.
SportsGrid.com. Betting insights and entertainment at your fingertips 24/7 as our team covers the most important topics in sports wagering. Real-time odds, predictive betting models, expert picks, and more. Want the edge? Then get on the grid. SportsGrid.com.
It can happen so easily. You're out with your friends or coworkers, you're putting back a few drinks, a few becomes a few too many. It's time to go, and for a moment, you think of calling for a ride. Nah, you're a good driver. You live nearby. You can make it home okay. What are the odds you'll get pulled over? And even so, what's the worst that could happen? You lose your license, you lose your job, you total your car, you kill someone. It only takes one mistake to change your life, or someone else's, forever. Play it safe and plan ahead to get a ride. Drive sober or get pulled over.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back from break here on Fantasy Sports Today on Sports Grid. I'm Davis Maddock, joined by my friend Pat Kerrane now of NBC Sports Edge. He has joined us full-time in the fantasy sports industry. Very happy for my friend, and I figured we'd get to talk about something very near and dear to our hearts, which is cheap wide receivers, Pat. Nothing makes you and I happy than getting wide receiver 2 seasons out of guys being drafted after, pick 100 in these best ball drafts. So the first guy I want to talk about is a guy who we got a little bit of positive buzz on and who I know you and I both love. Jalen Reagor reported to the media this week he's going to be playing out of the slot, which I think is basically the key to unlocking his ceiling, because even guys like Greg Ward were useful in this Eagles offense when they were playing out of the slot. So I guess the question is, do we buy it? Do we buy that Reagor will actually play out of the slot?
I do buy it. I don't think you'll be surprised to hear that as, I'm someone who's a fan of Jalen Reagor, but his competition there is Greg Ward. And I was listening to some of the Eagles beats talk about how they thought that Greg Ward could lead the team in targets just because he's going to be their slot guy. But if that changes, and I think it frankly should change, and Reagor gets some of that work, that's a lot of available targets that can lead to a much stronger second year than we saw as a rookie. And one thing is that I've been kind of in the lab here looking at rookie wide receivers and the guys who have awesome rookie seasons and how those seasons occur. And even guys like Justin Jefferson, Juju Smith-Schuster, Terry McLaurin, who have these amazing rookie seasons, they're generally running below average routes per game. So even if you think Devonta Smith is going to come out of the gate and be really strong, he's unlikely to be this kind of full-time alpha wide receiver. So there should be plenty of other routes available for other guys. And I think Reagor's set up pretty well if he's going to be on the outside and in the slot.
Yeah, and Devonta Smith early on in these drafts, he is I've yet to take him in a best ball draft right now because he is expensive. You kind of have to spend like a 7th, 8th round pick in these best ball drafts right now to get Devonta Smith. I feel like Reagor around the 12th round, and even Travis Fulgham, who, if you look at the wide receivers on the Eagles roster, Deshaun Jackson is gone. Marquise Goodwin, who opted out last season, is now on the Bears roster. They don't those great rotational options on the outside. Like it is not going to surprise me if Fulgham actually ends up outproducing Devonta Smith in year one. Which would not, I don't think, make us bearish on Devonta Smith, but just Fulgham is a little bit further along in his development, and he is literally free. I mean, you can select him with an 18th round pick right now.
Yeah, I think he's definitely a swing for the fences type. I don't think there's 100% chance he makes the roster. There's, he was in the doghouse last year. Yeah. It's a new coaching staff. It's at least possible that he ultimately is a cut. But as you say, like, there's also not that much there if he is on the team and if he's kind of redeemed himself in their eyes. And he had stretches of really strong play last year. And who knows, maybe Reagor doesn't improve at all. And in that case, Fulgham could be a really nice that call. And I think on Smith, yeah, he's just a little bit too expensive right now. I do want to get some exposure because, I think he can play efficiently. And that's kind of the bet with these rookie wide receivers. You want guys who are going to be able to play efficiently on decent volume. So I want exposure, but I think he's a little bit pricey.
Yeah. All right, the next guy, Henry Ruggs, only 43 targets as a rookie. Now, part of that, I think, is related to John Gruden not knowing what to do with someone of Henry Ruggs' skill set. I'm gonna give Henry Ruggs this excuse. A guy of his skill set, I think, was going to be most impacted by shortened offseason, no preseason games, because Ruggs he was never going to project as a guy who just came in, you stick him outside on the flank, and you just say, go run your routes. Like that really was never going to do it for Henry Ruggs. They don't really add any significant wide receiver talent in the offseason. It's Bryan Edwards. It is Henry Ruggs. It's Hunter Renfrow. It's Darren Waller. And then they add Kenyon Drake in the backfield to Josh Jacobs. I am quite willing to take stabs on Ruggs because what we've seen, and this is great research that's been published on RotoViz in the past, is that really high draft capital actually continues to impact guys' playing time and targets in year 2 and year 3 in a way that you would not conventionally expect.
I completely agree. I mean, losing Nelson Aguilar, I think is somewhat of a big deal. He played pretty well last year, and he was getting those types of targets that we wanted to see Henry Ruggs getting. They have John Brown there, who I think might be in somewhat of that Aguilar role, but Brown's kind of winding down. And yeah, what was the bet with Ruggs? I mean, he's super raw. We knew he was super raw. I mean, the Raiders knew he was super raw.
Right.
He's, extremely athletic, good size, just absolutely fantastic speed, and he's super young. So to have this guy flash a little bit, but not enough, and then head into year 2 and everyone's off him, it's like, that's strange to me. The bet was that this guy's probably going to take a couple years, but the ceiling is really high. So I think, kind of a classic guy to be betting on as a year 2 breakout in best ball. Not only is he kind of that spike week profile, but he's like a DK Metcalf type of guy who, DK Metcalf had a below average win rate in best ball as a rookie, but he had a huge second-year breakout. I think we could see something somewhat similar with Ruggs, where everyone's off him now.
Yeah, I mean, and there are still concerns about that offense, like how many touchdowns are they going to score, how many yards are they going to gain. But like Carr is not going to be a value-added quarterback for Ruggs, but I at least think he can be neutral-ish, right? Like a neutralist level of addition there. All right, next guy, Mecole Hardman. Sammy Watkins no longer on the team. Travis Kelce is 32 now. I think he might even turn 33 in season. Obviously, if any kind of injury happens to Tyreek Hill, we saw this in Hardman's rookie year where Tyreek got banged up and Hardman went from being, he would have just been a backup as a rookie and had to play more because he was in that Tyreek Hill role on the offense. Their backup wide receivers are Cornell Powell, rookie from Clemson, Byron Pringle, a 28-year-old third-year player from Kansas State, Demarcus Robinson. This is the last season I'm going to do this to myself with Hardman, I swear. But I do feel like it's got to be the best opportunity he's ever going to have, right? Like clear second wide receiver. The Chiefs should come close to leading the NFL in passing, and he's cheaper this season in drafts than he was last season with Watkins removed by the roster.
Yeah, he played fairly efficiently last year. He was very efficient the year prior. Over the course of his career, he's been an efficient wide receiver, and it's a better bet than last year. Things have opened up. He's still tied to Patrick Mahomes. This could be a huge breakout for Mecole Hardman, and he's cheaper. So I'm in. I'm totally in. I think it's a little bit of a hold your nose pick in terms of just the biases that we're kind of bringing in, that this guy's burned us. But I think it's a sharp thing to do. Like everything has improved and the price has gone down, and we know this guy's explosive. So what's not to like except for the pain he's caused us in years past.
Yeah. Okay, real quick. I was working on projections this week, and I realized that the Lions have 3 guys who are free in drafts, any of whom who could lead them in targets. Brashad Perryman, Tyrell Williams, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Just real quick, 15 seconds. Which one are you most interested in and why?
I think I'm most interested in Perriman because he's been able to show that efficiency in multiple destinations over the last few years. And I think he can be involved not just deep, but kind of in intermediate, where you don't want a guy who's sort of going to be more of a pure deep threat like Tyrell Williams might be, tied to Jared Goff. And with Amon-Ra St. Brown, I'm not sure he's going to be able to deliver that efficiency that you're really looking for with rookie wide receivers.
Yeah, I'm in on Perryman as well. I also think that Tyrell could have, his classic 700-yard, 5-touchdown season for these spike weeks as well. Everyone, we're going to head into break here real quick on Fantasy Sports Today. We will be continuing this best ball chatter throughout the rest of the week and throughout the rest of the offseason. See you guys in just a few minutes on the other side of break on Fantasy Sports Today.
SportsGrid.com. Betting insights and entertainment at your fingertips 24/7 as our team covers the most important topics in sports wagering. Real-time odds, predictive betting models, expert picks, and more. Want the edge? Then get on the grid. SportsGrid.com.
It can happen so easily. You're out with your friends or coworkers, you're putting back a few drinks, a few becomes a few too many. It's time to go, and for a moment, you think of calling for a ride. Nah, you're a good driver. You live nearby. You can make it home okay. What are the odds you'll get pulled over? And even so, what's the worst that could happen? You lose your license, you lose your job, you total your car, you kill someone. It only takes one mistake to change your life, or someone else's, forever. Play it safe and plan ahead to get a ride. Drive sober or get pulled over.
You're going to get yours regardless.
Weekdays, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern on the Sports Grid Network.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports Today here on Sports Grid. Those of you who are doing your best ball fantasy football leagues, I think this is a good time to tune into the show because Davis, of course, is very much entrenched in this. We covered the Houston Texans the other day. That wasn't very much fun. I feel like we'll have more fun talking about the Indianapolis Colts on the show today. And Davis, I would say this. The Colts are compelling. Why? Because they just keep switching quarterbacks. And on top of switching the quarterbacks, they keep winning. So it seems to be going well for Houston, and it seems to be trending in the right direction. But how many times can you switch out a quarterback and still have success? I guess for the Colts, the answer is over and over and over again.
Yeah, and it's amazing that they've had so much turnover at the quarterback position, and like just very rarely do you see this happen with teams. Like generally speaking, when you move quarterbacks, especially the way they were blindsided by Andrew Luck's retirement, you would basically think like, okay, they're going to be a bad losing team for the next couple years. They kind of strung things together with Jacoby Brissett, and then they were a solid team last season with Phillip Rivers. They then acquired Carson Wentz. I am interested to see what Carson Wentz does with Frank Reich was the offensive coordinator there when he had his, potential MVP season when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. So, I think there is a potential little bit of magic left there. I don't feel overly optimistic, but I am interested to see how things play out there. For fantasy, what we really want to see is we want to see Wentz get back to running the ball, which he basically did not do at all last season. 52 rushing attempts last season compared to 64 back in 2017. I mean, if he can run 70 times, get 300 rushing yards, 5 rushing touchdowns, I think we are looking at a kind of decent, sneaky season for Carson Wentz.
Yeah, and I think that it's very clear in a super flex league, he could end up being a starter for you. I don't know if he profiles as a top 10 guy, but top 20, certainly there's a chance of that. Jacob Eason, who I thought was going to end up getting a shot as the backup. They also drafted Sam Erlinger, interesting, from Texas. I don't know if he'll make the team or not, but everyone pretty much knows, I think, what Wentz brings to the table. So let's move on from quarterback because we kind of know. The running back situation is definitely interesting because it would appear, Davis, that on paper, Jonathan Taylor should be a 25-touch guy every single game. But I follow this long enough to know the Colts have never done this before. So that definitely brings the question, Davis, is it time for them to do it this year? Because when I look at their depth chart again, I see Marlon Mack is back, who I like, by the way. I don't think they just gave up on Marlon Mack. I wish he was somewhere else. But as the season goes on, I know the name Hines is going to pop up. I know the name Wilkins is going to pop up. We probably are hoping it won't, but will it again?
So I am a little bit worried about how high Jonathan Taylor is going in these drafts. Marlon Mack is definitely part of it. A big reason for Jonathan Taylor's resurgence last year was that Marlon Mack got hurt. However, Jordan Wilkins played a little bit more than you would expect. Like you would think that, okay, Marlon Mack goes out, you spend the high draft pick on Jonathan Taylor, you turn the ball over to him. But Jordan Wilkins got 84 carries and 16 targets last season as their third running back. And Nyheim Hines is not going anywhere. The last 3 seasons, Hines has 81, 58, and 76 targets. He's pretty efficient on those touches. He had 7 touchdowns last season. Like basically he didn't give the coaches any reason to take him off the field. And I think that we are getting a little bit over exuberant about Taylor, who in 15 games last year had 39 targets. Now he was tremendous as a rusher, 11 rushing touchdowns, averaged 5 yards per carry. And I expect that he will continue to be fantastic as a rusher. But the one thing we know about fantasy football is the guys who earn those first-round draft tags, it's all pass catching, right? Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, even when Elliott is at his best, it's through receiving. Dalvin Cook does a lot of work as a receiver. Really, Derrick Henry is the only running back who is good enough to be a first-round quality running back without the pass catching. So I'm a smidge worried about Jonathan Taylor, and I'm definitely very interested in Nyheim Hines. He kind of goes at the 10th, 11th round, about the 50th running back that gets drafted. And we just know what Hines is going to do. He's going to catch 50, 60 passes. He's going to get 50 to 80 rushing attempts, score 4 to 6 touchdowns. And those are, those are just really valuable points where you are able to select him.
Yeah, and I think that that's fair. And again, if one of those running backs was to go down again, it would bump Taylor's value up. A healthy Colts backfield means Taylor may be splitting a little bit more than people are anticipated. I think that that's fair for sure. Okay, so the Colts wide receiving core, I think they tried to upgrade it last offseason by drafting Michael Pittman Jr., and he had his moments, and he could take that next step. I mean, all those things could happen. But Davis, Phillip Rivers is the old word, the gunslinger, like he threw a lot of passes even still with them last year, and Pittman was good at times. But once T.Y. Hilton got healthy, it took a while. But once T.Y. Hilton got healthy, Pittman kind of faded away. So, I mean, Hilton's injury issues are always going to be there. And I want to believe that one of these guys are going to emerge. But when I look at their wide receiving core, I don't see a breakout here. Do you see one?
Yeah, I do really like Michael Pittman. He was banged up a little bit last year, and I thought he looked okay. Now, 500 yards and 1 touchdown. It's not like the most amazing rookie year stat line ever, but I feel like T.Y. Hilton is so close to being done as an impactful NFL player that you just cannot book, you can't earmark 120 targets for him anymore. Now, maybe he'll have a couple great games at home. He's always so good on the turf there in Indianapolis. But I do see a potential breakout for Pittman Jr. Also, Paris Campbell feels like he just gets injured every single year. I guess this is probably going to be the last time that Paris Campbell's name ever gets mentioned in the preseason if he gets injured again this season. He played in 2 games last year, 71 yards, nothing really to speak of, but he was highly drafted, 59th overall in 2019. A lot of people had very high hopes for him coming out of Ohio State. I was one of those people. I thought he looked like a very interesting college player, incredible speed, great balance, things like that. So I am drafting Paris Campbell and Michael Pittman where they are going and basically completely ignoring T.Y. Hilton. And it's all sort of symbiotic. All of these things work together, right? So if Carson Wentz gets his mojo back, then Paris Campbell and Michael Pittman are going to be in way better spots. If Carson Wentz is struggling throughout the course of the season, then these guys are going to struggle. But on the converse, if Paris Campbell and Michael Pittman, don't emerge, if they don't take a step at all, that's not going to be great for Carson Wentz because we know, quarterbacks, they can't really do it on their own. I mean, maybe Aaron Rodgers can make superstars out of guys like Alan Lazard and Marquez Valdez-Scantling, but someone like Carson Wentz needs that supporting infrastructure around him. But where they go right now in these drafts, I do really like Pittman and Paris Campbell.
Okay, and is there a name in the rest of the wide receiving core, either Pascal, who everyone recognizes from last year because he has these big boomer bust games, or DeMichael Harris, who they drafted, or Doolin, Courtney Davis? I mean, these are all names that no one's going to recognize. Is there anyone amongst that late group that you're taking in the last round or the 30th round of these best balls?
Yeah, they have a bunch of interesting names. They have Ashton Doolin, who was like one of the most productive D2 college wide receivers ever, who's hung around on their roster. They have a rookie from USC, Tyler Vaughns, who was a really productive player there. They have another D2 player, Mike Strachan, who was, a crazy pro day performer, crazy productive. I think there is something in the Indianapolis Colts scouting department where they're looking at these D2, these FCS players, and they're saying, I think these are guys worthy of taking shots on. If I was going to take one guy kind of in the last round, I think DeMichael Harris is very interesting because he is kind of the gadget player, the jet sweep guy in this offense. And if He also is probably the best like-for-like replacement for T.Y. Hilton. If T.Y. Hilton gets banged up or, just can't really play this year, I think DeMichael Harris is probably the best one-for-one substitution for him.
Okay, and closing it out on tight end, Jack Doyle is the starter there. What happened in last year's fantasy season, very early on, everyone was trying to make a thing for Mo Alley Cox, who was very productive in the first half of the season. But Davis, you basically could not start him toward the end of the season and the playoffs. Is there a chance Mo Alley Cox bounces back, or is it just Doyle as the tight end one there? I don't know if Doyle is a back end tight end for you.
Yeah, they have so many tight ends on the roster. You're right. Mo Alley Cox, 100-yard game in the second game of the season, scored touchdowns two games in a row, and then was useless for fantasy the rest of the way. Jack Doyle, he's fine. He is like one of the least athletic tight ends in the NFL, so I find it hard to get too excited about him. They drafted a guy by the name of Kylan Granson from SMU, who's kind of like an H-back style guy, very similar to Trey Burton, who had a couple great fantasy games for them last year. Trey Burton no longer on this roster. Granson more of like a dynasty ad. If I was taking stabs on one of these tight ends in best ball drafts, though, it would just be Mo Alley Cox again, basically saying, like, I think Doyle gets hurt or just operates as a backup because Mo Alley Cox is the more athletic player.
All right, well, what we've seen with the Colts, folks, for those of you who have watched in fantasy, is it almost hasn't mattered who their quarterback is. They have had production from the rest of the crew. We'll just have to see if Carson Wentz can get that to the next level this year. All right, that's our look at the Colts. More best ball and fantasy football look as we continue this summer. We'll be back with more fantasy sports today here on Sports Grid. More wagering and fantasy discussion is up next right here on sportsgrid.com. Don't go away. Davis and I will be back after this quick 2 minutes. Stay on the grid.
SportsGrid.com. Betting insights and entertainment at your fingertips 24/7 as our team covers the most important topics in sports wagering. Real-time odds, predictive betting models, expert picks, and more. Want the edge? Then get on the grid. SportsGrid.com.
It can happen so easily. You're out with your friends or coworkers, you're putting back a few drinks, a few becomes a few too many. It's time to go, and for a moment, you think of calling for a ride. Nah, you're a good driver. You live nearby. You can make it home okay. What are the odds you'll get pulled over? And even so, what's the worst that could happen? You lose your license, you lose your job, you total your car, you kill someone. It only takes one mistake to change your life, or someone else's, forever. Play it safe and plan ahead to get a ride. Drive sober or get pulled over.
Welcome back, Fantasy Sports today here on Sports Grid. Sports Grid 60 coming your way in just a few minutes. Well, really interesting game and result yesterday between St. Louis and Chicago in terms of what happened there. Pitcher Giovanni Gallegos was basically told by umpire Joe West to go change your hat because of an unknown substance on it. And, of course, that led to a lot of discussion. They ended up doing it. Regardless, it does look like several pitchers, if not many, are using some sort of substance to get a better grip on the ball and also make the ball move. And that was confirmed yesterday by the manager of the St. Louis Cardinals, Mike Schill.
Baseball's got a very, very, very tough position here because there are people that are effectively and not even trying to hide, essentially flipping the bird at the league with how they're cheating in this game with concocted substances. There are players that have been monetized for it. There are players that are obviously doing it, going to their glove. There's clear video of it. You can tell the pitchers that are doing it because they don't want to go to their mouth, which Gio does off the rubber. And understandably, and I know comfortably, Major League Baseball is trying their best to do it in a manner that doesn't create any black eye for the integrity of the game that we love. But speaking of integrity, how about the integrity of the guys that are doing it clean? How about the guys that are pitching their tails off in Major League Baseball and doing it clean that have an unfair competitive advantage for the guys that are clearly loading up with concoctions that they actually advertise? Don't do anything to hide, even in plain view, that's the guys I'm speaking for. I'm speaking up for the hitters that have a living to make facing stuff that's already really, really good. And you can see, based on spin rates, how guys' careers are jumping off the charts. And then you can do cause and effect. Now, I don't want to be, look, is our house 100% clean? I certainly hope so. Am I creating more of an opportunity? Because I just spoke to our pitchers. Am I creating more of awareness to our group? Potentially. But let's go check the guys that are sitting there going to their glove every day with filthy stuff coming out, not some guy before he's even stepped on the mound with a spot on his hat. That's how you want to start policing this? And unfortunately, that's how this is going to start. Now, maybe this is a crescendo for things to come. But can I tell you 100% that all our guys are 100% clean with nothing, other than some sunscreen and some rosin, which the hitters don't mind, by the way, because they want the grip, which is why we don't want the guys getting, hit in various spots with big arms. Hitters don't mind the grip. They don't want the stuff that's making the ball do wiffle ball stuff. And that's the issue at hand here. So you want to police some sunscreen and rosin? Go ahead. Get every single person in this league. Hit by pitches will just continue to go up. Balls will get away. But why don't you start with the guys that are cheating with some stuff that are really impacting the game and impacting how people play this game? And that's the integrity of the game I'll speak up for. Popular, I really don't care. It's accurate.
All right, Davis, before we get to fantasy or reality, what did you make of that?
I mean, I don't know. Guy's probably cheating, and his coach is probably mad that he got caught. That's what it seems like to me. I mean, I don't know. I thought when I read this headline at first, it was because Gallegos was wearing those awful area code hats that New Era rolled out, and then immediately said they weren't selling because everyone made fun of them so much online.
Yeah, that definitely was not it. All right, Brett, let's go to you here. Fantasy or reality? Take it away.
All right. Well, we discussed what the aftermath was, but our first question of the day, Giovanni Gallegos should have to change his hat if something is on it. Davis, we'll start with you. Is this a fantasy or reality?
Yeah, 100% reality, because we're all watching a non-optimal version of baseball because these guys are doing something, and I'm not going to say Gallegos was or he wasn't. What do I know? That's up for the officials to decide. But if he's got something on it, pine tar, Vaseline, whatever these guys are using, absolutely he should have to change it. Complete reality, Craig.
Yeah, I think when I look at this, and look, the more for me about anything else is I'm like you. I mean, I want the game to, have runs. I want runs to be scored. And I think that's a big part of what is not being done, is policing it to make sure that, hey, we get our fair amount of runs in each game. No one wants to go to games that are nothing in the seventh. It's just not there. So if Gallegos has to be, I guess, the scapegoat for this, then so be it. So for me, yeah, got to change your hat. Reality. Let the pitchers get their grip on the ball, but clearly Trevor Bauer and some of these others are doing something different to the ball. Spin rates are up across the league beyond anything comprehensible. So reality for me, Brett.
All right. Well, next we're going to go over to the football field. Adam Vinatieri retired yesterday, and we got to ask the question, Adam Vinatieri is the best kicker in NFL history. Craig, we'll start with you. Is this a fantasy or reality?
This is a tough one because he has the most points, but there have been some others in NFL history that some people consider to be better. I guess if I'm just looking at it from a points perspective, I'll say reality. He's also kicked some really big field goals in the Super Bowl as well. But I think that with Vinatieri in particular, Brett, the last 4 or 5 years of his career were just okay. And he just kind of compiled stats at the end of his career. But you could make the case the first decade of his career was the best in NFL history. So I'll say reality, but I feel like there is someone out there that's a kicking expert that could probably go back and say, hey, nah, you're wrong. Jan Stenerud, or I mean, he's even before my time. But one of these kickers ends up being better than Vinatieri.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be your kicking expert right now. When Justin Tucker is done playing, he's gonna be the best ever. He leads all of NFL history, all kickers ever in field goal percentage. He's made 90.6% of his field goals. He's led the league in 50-yard kicks multiple years of his career. He also has signature moments, right? He made a couple in the playoffs. He, obviously won the Super Bowl, yada yada, so on and so forth. And you are right that Vinatieri basically ruined his career the last 4 years in Indianapolis. And you can't, I think when you're talking about greatest ever, I don't think you can overlook the fact that he left from the Patriots to go to their rival, to go to the Colts. I think that's kind of part of the story. And then if I was just gonna say your pure nails, your game-winning guys, Mike Vanderyacht, his adversary, his rival back with the Colts, I think has some of those amazing moments as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's top 3 all time. I'll say that, but I
Sure.
think you can make the case for someone ended up being better than that. Brett, what do you think? Think he's the best all time?
I think he definitely hit some of the biggest kicks of all time, so that definitely weighs heavily on me. Also, he beat my Jets a lot, so maybe I just have bad experiences with Adam Vinatieri, so he's probably my best kicker of all time.
Okay.
But
Let's finish. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll stay in the Garden, stay in New York. Trae Young put on a show the last 2 games at MSG. The Knicks fans really gave it to him on and off the court. They were letting him hear it. So we got to ask, because the 90s era of basketball, it feels like it's back at the Garden. Trae Young is MSG's new Reggie Miller. Davis, is this a fantasy or reality?
So this is a fantasy, not because of anything Trae Young did, but because the Knicks are not good enough right now to have earned this. The Knicks do not have, because the Reggie Miller thing was built up over seasons and multiple playoff series and multiple moments. The Knicks, as much as we love them, as much as everyone at Sports Grid wishes that they were, a marquee, talented franchise, they're not. The Knicks are not a serious title contender. They haven't been a serious title contender my entire adult life. They stay in the media because everyone in the media loves the Knicks and wants them to be good and competitive. So Trae Young is not the new Reggie Miller. And they're a little bit different of a players, but he's not even really the Knicks' primary adversary has been LeBron James, because he faked them out in free agency. He made the Cavaliers better. He made the Heat better, and he detracts attention and superstars and free agencies away from the Knicks.
Yeah, this is a huge fantasy. Now, listen, if this series goes 7 and Trae Young is hitting game-winning shots all the way through, or hitting game-tying shots to go to overtime and they end up losing, like if he's hitting end-of-game buckets and shutting up the crowd for an extended period of time, he may be in the category, but I don't think that anything comes close as of right now to what Reggie Miller did in those games with the Pacers and the Knicks, with the whole choking sign to Spike Lee and everything. Come on. That's like some of the most iconic moments in the history of the NBA. And not to mention, I think Reggie Miller had like 12 points in a minute or something insane to bring Indiana back. So, Brett, I'm sorry on this one. This is a pretty staunch fantasy for Trae Young, but it's not to say that it can't happen, Brett, in the future. But there's got to be more track record here, no?
Yeah, I guess that's fair. I would say, I don't know. I think Trae Young has played really well in the Garden. I think he interacted with the fans just as entertainingly as Reggie did. So I'm excited for the rest of this series. I did not grow up a Knicks fan, to be fair, Craig, and I'm actually a huge Reggie Miller guy. So it's hard for me to say, but Trae definitely played the villain role this weekend at MSG.
Yeah, and also Brett makes the questions sometimes for fantasy or reality, so that's part of it. Wants to, the whole key, Davis, to fantasy or reality is like, we should call it like the Levy Sportsbook, because the goal is for fantasy or reality, Davis, is to get us to disagree and kind of give a case for both sides. And I think that once you're doing that, you're sort of, making the argument in both ways. But But no, I just don't see it in this one. Is there like a villain in the NBA right now? Like, is there a guy that everyone boos when they? I mean, LeBron James maybe, but
Yeah,
you're doing great
LeBron is
there.
the villain. Well, LeBron or Kevin Durant, maybe. Durant is a pretty good villain. Everyone hated him going to Golden State, and if the Brooklyn Nets win the title this season, and I mean, a lot of people don't like Kyrie. A lot of people don't like because Kyrie's big on the social justice and all of those things, and that always rubs people the wrong way. A lot of people don't like James Harden. James Harden got fat, got himself traded, didn't try for the Houston Rockets. So I think the Nets are kind of the villains, but it's always LeBron. All of the other 29 teams hate LeBron and hate whatever team he's playing on. Like he really is the villain.
Yeah, I feel like Rondo was a guy like that for a while. Paul George, I guess a little bit. Like, yeah, I mean, I don't. There's really not that bruising type guy that just everybody hates that comes in the game and is fouling you like those old Pistons teams. But yeah, I think LeBron is probably that guy, and for really no reason. All he does is win everywhere he goes. All right, Sports Grid 60 coming up next. Make sure you stay with us and stay on the grid. We got plenty more to come, and don't forget, we're right back here tomorrow, noon Eastern. George Kurtz will be in for me. We'll have interviews with Jim Stannis, talking some NASCAR, getting you ready for the big race at Charlotte this weekend. We'll be right back. Stay on the grid.
SportsGrid.com. Betting insights and entertainment at your fingertips 24/7 as our team covers the most important topics in sports wagering. Real-time odds, predictive betting models, expert picks, and more. Want the edge? Then get on the grid. SportsGrid.com.
It can happen so easily. You're out with your friends or coworkers, you're putting back a few drinks, a few becomes a few too many. It's time to go, and for a moment, you think of calling for a ride. Nah, you're a good driver. You live nearby. You can make it home okay. What are the odds you'll get pulled over? And even so, what's the worst that could happen? You lose your license, you lose your job, you total your car, you kill someone. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's, forever. Play it safe and plan ahead to get a ride. Drive sober or get pulled over.
Welcome back to Pick Sports Today. Here on this Thursday, it's time for the Sports Grid 60, as we always leave you with one sometimes interesting thought, sometimes not at all. Sometimes we make no sense, but we'll see what we got today from Davis as he closes it out for this Thursday. Davis, Sports Grid 60, take it away.
Yeah, I mean, come on. We gotta talk about the pickle play in the Cubs-Pirates game. Very rarely do you see a memeable viral moment of a fielding play in baseball. So essentially, Javi Baez hits a chopping grounder, gets caught up in a pickle play, and this poor Pirates first baseman, who it might be his first ever major league game, he just got called up, Will Craig, just makes an absolute mess of it, doesn't get Baez out, ruins the pickle play, lets not one, but 2 runs score as a result of, I mean, just a complete chaotic mess. If you haven't seen it, you got to go watch it. I'm sure they'll have it on the Sports Grid Twitter handle if they have not tweeted it out already. But I mean, a little bit of Javi Baez magic. You love to see Javi Baez directing traffic out there and getting some runs scored for his team.
Yeah, one of the most embarrassing defensive plays you'll ever see, when it's 2 outs and the ball is hit to the first baseman. You just touch first base and it's over. And he did not. And mayhem ensued. Mayhem ensued last night in what I would say was probably one of the poorer choices that a fan has made in a game in a long time. Now, I know that popcorn is not something that's going to hurt anybody. I understand it. And I understand it was in Philadelphia and the fans there are basically insane. But you really have to be detached from reality to pour anything on a professional athlete. And I know this is the coldest of hot takes of all time, but why does this even still happen? And we have fans that are probably going to games for the first time in a year, and your choice is to dump popcorn on Russell Westbrook? Like, you talk about the first baseman of the Pirates making a bad decision. That was definitely the worst decision that anybody I've seen make as a fan in sports in the last year, and there haven't been a lot to make. All right, that'll do it for our show today. Again, stay on the grid. Scott Farrell coming up a little bit later today. For James at LTN, Brett, Danny, and Ryan, and my co-host Davis Maddock, I'm Craig Mish. Hope you have a great Memorial Day weekend. I'll see you next week.
It can happen so easily. You're out with your friends or coworkers, you're putting back a few drinks, a few becomes a few too many. It's time to go, and for a moment, you think of calling for a ride. Nah, you're a good driver. You live nearby, you can make it home okay. What are the odds you'll get pulled over? And even so, what's the worst that could happen? You lose your license, you lose your job, you total your car, you kill someone. It only takes one mistake to change your life, or someone else's, forever. Play it safe and plan ahead to get a ride. Drive sober or get pulled over.